first pick.
All right, it is Thursday, January 28th. I'm Jared. That's Tyler. This is On the Clock, your Just Baseball, College, and MLB Draft podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, whatever you need to do on whatever platform you listen on to make sure you're getting all the latest episodes for us. Tyler, it's still MLB Draft Board season. This time, it's time to talk about the prep list. Before we get into that, how are you doing today?
Well, I don't sound like booty like I did last time because I was still getting over the flu or whatever's been going around. So
Yeah,
doing good. Doing good.
I think you sounded great last time. I don't think you have to worry about that. You're fine.
Fair.
Yeah, so this week we have to break down the top 80 high school players for the 2025 MLB draft. Last week we brought you the top 80 college players. We're switching it over to high school guys. First question I wanted to get into, because I think this is going to be controversial when you look at your number one. No Ethan Holliday there, right? The people who don't really probably follow the draft and things like that are like, oh, why isn't Ethan Holliday one? Everybody's got Ethan Holliday one. Talk about your pick at number one.
Yeah, so admittedly wanted to be a little bit more spicier with my takes on this list. Because with the college board, like what would the spiciest take be? Like Jamie Arnold or Bremner at one?
Yeah, probably.
You know, like admittedly that's not, I'm not trying to say that's not spicy, but like I think people have come around to the idea that that's essentially what's going to happen, and I'm fully on board with it. It's just like I said before, is it's just a little too tough to ignore a guy that could play center field with 7 juice from the left side over Jamie Arnold. Obviously, being the pitcher that he is, he just hasn't shown that changeup, and I just want to see more of it. That's essentially what that was. The prep side is a lot more different, and it's a lot more, I would say, volatile than the college class. And I'd say that's a good thing. Like last year, we had a pretty bad prep class. I don't think anybody's going to argue that it was a good class. But this year, there's some more higher end guys. And for me, when you look at some of the performances this summer, like you look at Ethan Holliday, and there's just some questions about the bat that I have moving forward. Like, yes, it's probably 7 raw power from the left side. Like that's very valuable. He's already hit a ball 111.
Yeah.
With Wood during the summer showcase. So you look at that and you go, okay, so there's legitimacy there, but also just, I think with the passivity that he has, and this can go over to Nyans as well, is like the bat to ball just hasn't been there with the passiveness they have. And it's really kind of just tough to gauge how hit tool is at that point, because it's really hard to tell. Like Nyans has that lift to the ball. He puts the ball in the air a ton. Holiday is kind of that same boat, but also I just don't know if Holiday's in zone contact is good enough to really warrant like a 1-1 case per se. And for me, if he wasn't somebody that I already had penciled in as like a future third baseman, he would definitely be one. But the fact that he's kind of got to show that he's a shortstop. I'm a little worried about the hit tool itself. Like if he's still kind of this way during the spring, I would imagine there's a non-zero chance that he ends up at Oklahoma State. So for me, it just felt like Holiday needs a bigger spring than what most people believe he should need at this next level. And with Willits, like the bloodlines are there. He's a reclass, so he's younger for the class. He'll be like 17-7 on draft day. The power is nowhere close to what Holiday is, and I don't think it ever will be. But they're two completely different archetypes of players. Like Willits is a legitimate switch hitter with some budding pop from the left side. And if he gets the average power, I think that's wholeheartedly like a 6-hit, 5 power guy. You take that over a potential 4-hit, 7 power, even if it is a lefty bat. And yes, they have the same kind of bloodlines. Like,
yeah.
Eli's dad is Reggie. He played for I believe the Angels.
Yes. Yeah. He was an Angels center fielder, I believe.
I think so. Yeah. So like it's kind of same demographic kind of with the bloodlines there. And for me, just having that ability to hit from both sides of the plate with the chance to stick at shortstop and maybe even play some center field with like Eli got shot out to center field at 18U trials and I think robbed a home run. So for me, like having the chance to see both of those players and kind of evaluate like who I think could be better was a big decider in like how should I proceed with this. And this isn't like trying to stir controversy or anything. Like it's essentially us trying to steer away from the consensus and
Yeah.
go what we truly believe. And for me, I just think Willits is a better chance to be 1-1 with the tool set that he has than Holliday at this point. I think Holliday needs to have a really, really good spring in order to get back to that place.
Yeah. And
I
like,
think, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna mention to your point of like they're kind of wanting to be a consensus 1-1. I feel like in the media and in a lot of coverage of the draft, everybody wants that consensus 1-1, right? Because it draws more attention. Like when you have a Bryce Harper or a Steven Strasburg, like these guys that you just know are going to be automatic big leaguers, and not every class is going to be like that.
Mm-hmm. No, you hit the nail on the head, like just right on there. Because admittedly, like kind of just looking around, there's the volatility. I mentioned that before. There's
Mhm.
volatility on both sides of the demographics here. College could just be any way, shape, or form here in the next couple months. And I think the high school side has more consistency. There's more polish
Yeah.
there. But, when you compare it to last year's class, it's not a significant upgrade like we all thought it was coming into the year. There's more depth. There's more higher end talent.
Mhm.
But before the season started, or before last summer started, we were all saying that this is miles away better than 24. And there's part of me that just is sitting here. It's like there's some similarities to 24 here. And just like looking forward, like 26 looks like an absolutely loaded class. So if you're
Brady
looking for a
Emerson.
class that's like blowing any of these out of the water, you got to wait till next year because it looks very, very star studded at this point.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more though. You kind of touched on like what made Eli Willits number one, but what were like the things that popped off the board for you, just in terms of tools that had you put him at number one?
It's not necessarily the twitch that he has. Like he's
Hmm.
athletic, but he's not overly twitchy like a few players you'll see. But the biggest thing was the ability to stick at shortstop and has that versatility to play two premium positions to the next level. Those were the big separators for me. Like, yes, the switch hitting and being able to stick at that moving forward was definitely something that was ruled in as a potential, like this is the separator for me between him and Ethan. But again, you look at a guy that's like potential 4 hit 7 power, that's still a potential top 10 guy.
Hmm.
Just with the way that this class is. So for me, having that versatility to kind of play shortstop, and then if you want him in a pinch to play center field, he can do that for you. Whereas, I mentioned before, Ethan kind of already has that body type for third base. Like he's already more physical than what his brother was at this stage. And kind of moving forward, like he's already played some first base. So you kind of have that idea of like, well, if third base doesn't work out, he might just be a landlocked first baseman moving forward, which I don't think is like 100% going to happen. But it's something that you can look at it on paper and be like, maybe that's a possibility moving forward, like down the line, if injuries pile up and just the movement, mobility, and like the athleticism at third base just isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
So I want to say that's like a long shot right now, but it's certainly something that as a scout, you have that in the back of your mind where it might happen sometime down the line. So for me, those were the biggest things was defensive positioning and kind of just looking at the fact that the pure hit tool is miles better, even with maybe 2 grades less power than what
Yeah.
Ethan has.
And I think when you're a pro team, it's a lot harder to teach a hit tool than it is to like hopefully that a guy grows into some power, because like you're looking at 17, 18-year-old kids, right, that are going to get drafted on draft day, and you're like, oh, there's probably room for growth there, so you can hope that there's like more power potential, or they can kind of make some adjustments to the swing so they can tap into more power. But like teaching a legit hit tool is very hard.
Yeah, and like you can look at some examples. I think Caglianone this past year, his
Hmm.
end zone contact rate improved pretty drastically from the sophomore year. But obviously the caveat with him is potentially 8 raw power,
Yeah.
and admittedly the chase rate is very worrying to look at. And
Yeah.
Ethan's not that. I don't think Ethan's ever going to have an issue with being overly aggressive or having too high of a chase rate. Like, he's passive, but he knows how to take walks. He's not trying to do too much, but you look at the end zone contact rate, it's hovering around 70%. You
Yeah.
really want something better than that if you want to have a shot at 1-1. So again, that's why I kind of say, like, I want to see a big spring out of him, because admittedly, you look at this past summer and nothing really screams to you that, like, hey, this is a 1-1 guy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing here is, in this class, with how weak the college side is, there is a non-zero chance that the first overall pick could be a high school guy. And we haven't had that in a little bit. So kind of just looking at that, like, if you want to be that 1-1 pick, you got to have the contact, the power, and everything kind of working together there. And just with Holliday, power was definitely there. I just worry about that hit tool, moving forward. What does that look like? Does it get better? It's definitely a worry that I have. And I'd imagine there's more people in the scouting space that have that same issue, where it's like the passivity kind of just takes away from the fact that the end zone contact is just not what you want it to be at this point. If you want to be, the best of the best.
Yeah, and I'm wondering too, like, if there's some like unnecessary pressure on him because of his lineage, because of Jackson Holliday going as high as he was. He 1-1, yeah. Sorry, but like those kind of factors, you have to kind of imagine a kid who's like 17, 18 years old. That has to play some kind of role when like everybody's like, oh, he's a consensus number one because of the tools and because of all the background he has with his family.
Oh, it's 100% in the equation. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You come in, your dad is essentially a career 290 hitter. I think he's going to be on the Hall of Fame ballot within the next couple of years, too.
Yeah.
And then you look at your brother, who went from a guy that we didn't really think would be a first rounder to, hey, he's 1-1 because he had such an outrageous spring with the power uptick and everything. And Jackson was kind of in that same boat, too, where like he didn't have the greatest summer. He went into the spring kind of knowing that, like, hey, we need to have a really good spring season to kind of boost everything. And he did. Yeah. And I fully think Ethan is capable of doing that. I don't want to sit here and just hark on the kid for having a bad summer. Like, the spring is essentially what is going to dictate his stock this year. And we can't just sit back and be like, hey, let's keep looking at what happened in the summer when he's a completely different person and player, in the spring, if that makes sense. So like, I still fully expect maybe Ethan could still be that 1-1 pick. But like I said, the spring season needs to be at least different than what his summer was. Not drastically different, but I need to see some improvements with the hit tool for me to say that, like, you're going to be a top 5 pick, or you're going to be the essential 1-1 moving forward, But I think at the end of the day, like, with Ethan's tool set and everything, and the fact that you can start him at third base moving forward, it's still looking like a top 10 pick for me right now if I had to be a betting man.
Yeah. The one thing I kind of want to touch on the two of these guys, because I think it's funny, they both have the lineage of having dads that were major leaguers, both from Oklahoma, which is even funnier. One's going to the University of Oklahoma. The other's are committed to Oklahoma State. So it's kind of cool to kind of see that a little bit. Comparing the dads now, and of course the dads have nothing to do with how good the kids are going to be, but Matt Holliday was a 7-time All-Star, 4-time Silver Slugger, 44.5 B-WAR for his entire career. Reggie Willits has 0.1 B-WAR for his entire career. How many home runs do you think Reggie Willits hit in his career?
I don't think he had a single one.
0.
I've looked this up. I'm pretty sure it was 0.
But he did in 2007, 136 games, /293, 391, 344, was 5th in the Rookie of the Year voting. So not bad. Gotta give him props.
I'll add another wrinkle into this. Both their parents are coaches at the colleges they're committed to. Yep. Reggie's an assistant coach. I know that. Like, he's on he's a paid coach. I don't know if Josh is, but I know the Oklahoma State manager is. I'm pretty sure their grandfather or in some relation to him. I'm not too sure what it is.
The head coach is like their uncle, right? Isn't that his?
I think so. It's
Yeah, it's
either
Matt
uncle or
Holloway's
grandfather.
brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, or I might be thinking of something else for grandfather. Maybe it was like the Chatham Anglers coach before
Okay.
he retired recently. So there's lineage there. There's more lineage. It's a whole family business in Oklahoma right now.
Yeah.
So
I looked it up. Reggie Willits is the associate head coach.
mhm.
Um, Josh Holliday is the head coach, which I think is Matt Holliday's brother, I believe. But don't quote me on it. I believe it is.
Let me confirm this.
Gonna confirm these details for you all. Yes, younger
I'm
brother of
sure.
Matt.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say I'm sure there's someone watching this going, they're related because they're brothers, Tyler. What's wrong with you? I'm sorry. I've like
uh,
it. Here's the thing: it's 8:10 on a Sunday night.
yep.
We have Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs going on right now. So like I've been watching that for the past like hour and some change.
And they're only
Which
in the
by the
second
way,
quarter.
right. And by the way, go Bills, by the way, because I would like to have my mom not endure playoff failure again. She is a
As a
lifelong Bills fan for what it's worth.
as a Royals writer, I will say nothing bad publicly about the Chiefs, but I can't confirm what happens not publicly in terms of what I say about the Chiefs.
So here's my thing with the NFL, and I know we're going on a weird tangent right
Yeah,
now.
sometimes it happens.
Yeah, like again, Panthers fan, we've been over that a million
Yeah.
times. Bryce Young 9, he's taking us to Super Bowl next year. Anyways,
Whoa there. Let's simmer down a little bit.
hey, no. I led this off by saying we're having spicy takes. We're going to continue doing this. But my family is from Finger Lakes region in New York. So we're looking at like an hour and a half from Buffalo. My mom grew up in Canandaigua. So admittedly, like she endured the 90s where they lost 4 straight Super Bowls. I just really at this point want to see my mom in a Super
Yeah,
Bowl.
I love
Like
it.
I don't even know if they moving forward like they would win it, but admittedly I would love to see the Bills in the Super Bowl just to see my mom happy for football for once, because I've seen some weird games recently, like the Vikings Bills game in 20, I want to say it was 22, where the Vikings walked into Buffalo and Justin Jefferson
Yeah,
had like a 200-yard game or something. I
awful.
thought she was going to have a heart attack watching that
Yeah.
game, to be honest with you. I was worried. So let's just, whatever the Super Bowl is, like, I don't know what it's going to be. When it comes out Tuesday, we'll know who it is. But I'm hoping it's the Bills are involved in some way, shape, or form.
Yes, would love that. That would be incredible. No segue here. We're gonna go right into the best prep arm. I'm not even gonna try to make a segue there. What's the point? Based on your ranks, I know who you're gonna pick, but I feel like there's a pretty close battle between the top 2 guys. But you can tell me if I'm wrong.
Um, no, I think there is a pretty close battle. Like we do have Cameron Appenzeller at 2, and admittedly, like finding somebody with that kind of ease operation, arm speed, pitchability, and just pure stuff from the left side is tough.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at it, scouts are going to prefer anything left-handed. So like left-handed power is there, left-handed velo is there. Appenzoller's already gotten up to 93, 95 with the fastball this summer, and he's missing bats. Like it's a good metric fastball from a pretty low release. It's not Jamie Arnold low, but it's low enough to where it's like a slingy release coming from like a wider-ish angle. And it's just a tough at bat for guys. And then you throw in the sweeper in there, and he's got advanced feel for a changeup. For me, kind of just looking at it from like a national standpoint, with the scouts preferring left-handed stuff, like I'm the same kind of person. With Sam Hernandez, there's obviously way more power.
Mm-hmm.
And I would argue similar projection. Like they're pretty similar body types.
Yeah.
I think Appenzeller's like 6'5", 185. Steph's like 6'4", 195. I think Hernandez, you're going to get a guy that's going to be throwing a lot harder than what he is now. Like he's already touched triple digits.
Yeah.
This could be a kid that might sit triple digits moving forward.
Didn't he hit triple digits at USA when you were there?
Area
No.
code. Area
Area
code.
code, that's right.
Yeah, because he was 95, 98 at USA, but he only threw 1 inning. He did a lot more hitting than pitching, which I found a little bit odd. But his future is without a doubt on the mound. Like you get up to a hundo with the kind of stuff that he has, like the curveball, he can snap off well. He's traded in kind of like a not a sweeper, but like he's got a firmer mid 80s cutter now, or like a cut slider hybrid. And he's probably got one of the best changeups in the entire class. Like this kid is just scratching the surface of what he could do. And with the kind of projection and some of the tweaks with the delivery too, like he's not fully into his back leg as he's going down the mound. So for me, it's very close. I went Appenzeller because of the lefty bias. And like, I think Appenzeller might end up becoming like just a really, really good Noah Schultz type.
I like that.
Not as tall, but like kind of similar delivery, kind of similar arm slot, kind of similar stuff too. And for me, I think that's just where Appenzeller ends up being. Like you look at Schultz now, he's 6'10", 240.
Yeah.
Like that's alien type crap right there. And he's already in the mid 90s with a similar fastball shape to Appenzeller, has that same kind of sweepy slider, and has changeup feel. Like it's kind of close. Maybe I'm going too far when making that comparison, but like it's similar. It's very similar. So that for me was why Appenzeller is at 2 and Hernandez is at 4. But I could totally see them being flip flopped at the end of the year.
Yeah. Just going to be depending on who has a better spring. Really showcasing stuff. For you, before we kind of get into just missed players, who do you think could take over as number 1? Like who might like surprise you and you're like, okay, yeah, this guy has a real potential to be the next number 1 prep guy.
So that's a little bit tougher to kind of figure out than the college class, because the college class is just so wide open right now for me. The prep class is a bit more bunched together. It's a bit more
tiered up.
It's a bit more tiered. Yeah. Billy Carlson is definitely a guy I've seen like thrown around to where he could be the best player in this class. Like it's a 7 glove at shortstop if you want to be very bold on that. And admittedly, like I've seen this comp kind of thrown around a bit, and I agree with it. It's like a Jordan Beck X Swing from a guy that's 6'1", 180. So it's steep. He can get the power. I think he hits a lot more than like some of us believe he can. Like wasn't the greatest at USA trials, but you can tell the tools are there. And just with the defense alone, like you can see somebody throwing millions of dollars at that just alone. Like defense is highly valued at shortstop there. So for me, I think he could be there. Nyans, if he, kind of fixes the passivity and the end zone contact like Holliday does, I could totally see him there. But those are kind of like the 2 guys for me. Like Case and Cunningham, just with his size and stature, I just don't know if he's ever going to have the power moving forward to be a 1-1 type. Fauski is kind of like, he's already big. Like he's 6'3", 210. There's not much projection left to that frame, but there's some versatility there. And I really love the swing. I think the power is going to play. That's why we have him higher than most. Like he's 8 on our board for a reason. And then Schoolcraft is probably like a dark horse, I would have to say. Like for me, having a left-handed pitcher with 7 feet of extension and has the
6'8".
He's 6'8", 230 and has elite body control for a kid that size. Like, and not to mention he's a reclass from 26. So, you see the age of like 18-2 on draft day this year. He would have been, sophomore eligible if he had stayed in 26. So, for me, it's those guys. But overall, I think the top 3 we have as of right now are the best 3 to kind of be in that position moving forward. But again, like stuff changes so rapidly in this space. Anything can be possible. But for right now, like those 3 guys, I believe will be the top 3 as we move forward into the spring and beyond that as well.
I love it. For you, who, if you can pick one guy, and I'll kind of join you in this here. I'll be honest, I'm not as strong as the prep guys, but I know a couple of them. So going to try to make an attempt here. But who just missed the top 10?
So the biggest guy for me that I wanted to put on the top 10, Gavin Fien out of Great Oak. And I don't know if it's SoCal. I know it's California. Like I'm not stupid, but my California geography is not the greatest. So but essentially with Fien, like there's bloodlines there. We talked about bloodlines. They're key in models. They're key in evaluations. Um, with Fien, his brother Dylan was a 7th rounder to the Oakland A's last year. And I want to say his dad also played too. I could be mistaken on that, or I'm thinking of somebody else. Actually, I think I might be, because the Becker family is another one where like the dad played in the minors, Eric's at Virginia, and then Nikki's eligible this year. So, but like with Gavin, he had arguably the best summer of any bat in this class. And I don't say that like loosely either. Like, he was facing a lot of USA arms, and this isn't like your normal, PG or PBR tournament where like you're going to run across guys that are throwing mid 80s. These are all guys that are throwing they're hovering around 90. They're getting up to 95, 96. So you're seeing the best of the best. And he handled them all very well. He hit for power, hit for average, had really good end zone rates, and can handle fastballs. For me, I think he could probably work on the swing a little bit. The hand load's not the greatest, but the overall contact, the feel to lift the ball too is there. I think he's probably far and away the best bat that's not in the top 10. And for me, if he can prove that he can play third base at like a not a serviceable level, but like a better level than serviceable. I don't know what the adjective would be for that off the top of my head right now, but if he can prove that he has mobility and the range to stick at third base long term, I think he's definitely going to be one of the first bats off the board this year.
I love it. I went with outfielder Dean Moss, LSU commit. I went on a rabbit hole after I saw your USA video on him, just because that was some insane bat speed and quick hands, and it was just a lot of fun to watch from the left side of the plate. He's going to be a little bit older on draft day, 19, in 2 months, I think, on your board. But it's just a really good hit tool, and I kind of really enjoy watching him swing the bat. So that's going to be my guy.
Yeah, and like he's a weird one too, because he's shorter.
Yeah,
like,
he's like,
I think
6
he's like
foot, maybe, if that. Like,
yeah, he's like 6 flat, 185 probably is what I'd have to guess.
Yeah.
Because like the 6'0", 182 is kind of outdated a little bit. Like, these guys do add weight over the winter. But like, he is just so much torque with the body, man. It's really impressive for him to get to the power that he can at his size. And it might not even be more than average, but the hit tool's good too. Like, it was something like an 82% contact rate overall, and like just looked really good at USA. Hit a bomb out at Coleman Field, which is not the easiest thing to do. So for me, like, Moss, I think, is probably a little bit lower than he should be on this list, but it's obviously tough when you have guys like Slater DeBrun there, Sean Gamble. You look at Brady Ebel; he had a better closing to his summer than he started, so had to reward him for that. So like, there's a non-zero chance I could see him being like a top 10 bat off the board at some point. But again, you look at that age, and kind of does scare some teams off. Like, I don't think age is as scary as it used to be, because again, Dante Nori was 19.6 and he got drafted in the first round last year. So
worst case scenario, he goes to LSU, draft eligible sophomore, becomes a stud, and then goes on from there.
Absolutely.
Probably can't hate going to LSU at this point. So
no, not at all.
So now we're going to go into a couple of just missed. So these are guys who just missed the top 80 board completely. I know you have 2 pitchers, and you were really excited about this pre-show. So let's dive in.
Yeah. So I literally went up to you and I was like, I got 2 guys I'm fighting between. Like, can I just do both? Oh, my bad. So the first guy I'm going to bring up is Maddox Miller out of Oak Grove High School in Mississippi. When we're talking about like a projectable, lanky, left-handed pitcher, like Appenzeller is that. And he's super, super polished for what he is. Miller, I would argue, is more projectable. He's like 6'4", 170. So you're looking at a guy that you can kind of give a body comp to like a Tristan McKenzie type, potentially. But he's already gotten it up to 90. Like, it's pretty good arm speed from the left side, and he's got advanced feel for a changeup that guys really do have struggles with as a righty. It's really good separation from the fastball. So you're looking at a guy that's usually in the upper 80s. So you're hovering around 80 with the changeup. Feels there. There's feel for a breaking ball. I think he's a guy that you add weight to that frame and he's going to unlock a new gear. And he's going to Super 60 this year. So for those of you that aren't aware, like PBR's Super 60 event has turned out a lot of quality talent over the past few years. Like Chris Lavonis last year, the summer before, he was 88, 91. He comes out to Super 60s, 95, 98 with 2 different breaking balls,
That helps.
So like I'm not saying he could be that guy, but he definitely has a chance to put himself onto the map in a firm way this year with a solid showing at Super 60 and in carrying that into his spring season. And he's a Mississippi State commit, so Chris Lavonis, if you get him to campus, I will be happy. I will be very happy. Now, the second guy I want to talk about is more of a two-way. And I know Joe Doyle has brought his name up over the past couple of weeks. And the more film I've watched of him, I'm kind of more in on it. It's Jonah Williams out of Ball High School in Texas. And you might know the name if you're a football fan, because he is a 5-star safety recruit, I do believe, committed to Texas. And there was talk the other day that, Schloss and Sarkisian have mentioned the idea of him being a 2-sport guy in college.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of just looking at that in general, like you want two-way guy or like 2-sport guys like that to choose baseball. Deuce Robinson was a prime example of that a couple years ago. Where he was a 5-star recruit as a tight end to go to, I think, USC, but he was also a very talented baseball player. And Jonah Williams is in that same boat. He's a southpaw with a good fastball and quality changeup from the left side. I think he's been up to 95 with extreme athleticism. It's really, really easy. But not to mention, like, he's a burner on the base pass. It might be a double plus run tool. I think there's good raw power in there as well, and he has feel to hit. So, like, there's legitimate two-way possibilities there. Not to mention the 5-star safety rating that he has. So, like,
crazy.
He is a very fascinating player in this cycle. With that in mind, and he's going to be young too. He's only going to be 18 in a month on draft day this year. So, you look at that. That's model friendly, but again, the thing that has been going on in the past couple of years is trying to get guys to play baseball, especially on the football side. Like, you want these guys to play baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And admittedly, if you get Jonah Williams to play baseball moving forward over football,
sweet.
That's a big win for MLB in its own right, because they had their chance with Deuce Robinson. It didn't work out.
Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray's another one. And I think, hey, third time's charm. You can finally make it work. And I think Williams might have the most upside from the previous two.
Yeah.
For my money, I think Williams is highly underrated on the public space. And I really wanted to put him on this list. I really did.
Yeah.
Because you just don't find guys like that often.
Yeah.
And for me, the thing was, how does this kind of work moving forward? How are we going to handle the 2-sport eligibility moving forward? Now that we have kind of a clear answer, I'm kind of kicking myself. That's like, hey, you can get him on here.
Yeah.
But like, to talk about him now is like, this is a guy that could easily get drafted moving forward on day one. Whether or not it happens, I have no idea. I can't predict the future, but this would be a monumental win for Major League Baseball if they can get Jonah Williams to focus primarily on baseball moving forward.
I love that we have two sport athletes on this list.
Right.
We'll get into that when we get into the hitters. But for my pick, you'll notice I strictly went with guys in like the DMV area. So that's DC, Maryland, Virginia. I always forget. No one knows what that means except me. I picked guys in there because those are the ones that I know the most. So first guy is Joe Nottingham out of Windsor Mill, Maryland. He's a Georgia commit. This kid is very athletic, very loose on the mound. A lot of whippiness to his arm action. He's up to 95 at area code games, but he's sits probably low 90s, probably 90 to 93 for the most part, but he can get it up to 95 if he needs to. I just really like that, and I'm excited to see more what he can do. He's got a pretty good breaking ball as well, and he can spin it as well. Kind of falls off the mound a little bit here and there at times, but it's pretty loose mechanics, and it's just very impressive. So he's a kid I'm definitely watching in the area. And I'm going to drop two since you dropped two. I'm going to go another guy from the Maryland area, Jordan Rogolski. That is a tall and lean kid. He's got a really, really good build to add more velo. I think he's also been low 90s and touch 95. So he's going to be an interesting kid to watch in the area as well. And like the prep arms in this area are a ton of fun. I think there's a lot of guys that are kind of not overlooked, but there's just like more prep arms, it feels like, in this area than there has been in the past.
Yeah, let's say that DMV area has some sleepers in this year's class. Like Aiden
Yeah.
West obviously is one
Yep.
of them. You mentioned Rogolski, you mentioned Nottingham. There's another one you're going to mention here too when we get to the hitters. I'm not going to say his name.
This is
I almost slipped up and said it, but like
also shout out Rekka for the next pick for me when we get to hitters.
Always love a good Rekka reference, man. Rekka's awesome. Yeah. I love him.
Yeah, so I mean, then you got like Austin Weiss, you got Austin Dean, just got a lot of talent in the area. So excited for that. Moving on to hitters, what do you got? Who you got for me?
So again, this is another guy that Joe Doyle's brought up on the mainstream. I got to watch some film of it, and I'm fully in on it. Cole Clark out of Huntington Beach High School in SoCal. And, you hear Huntington Beach, you think of Ralphie Velasquez. This team has been the NHSI the past few years, and they're slated to go back this year. So kind of looking at the exposure he's going to get moving forward, and he's already had the kind of the fall season where, scouts are in on the tools. He looks a lot toolsier than he did over the summer, and he's already gone yard. Like SoCal starts pretty early.
Yeah.
They're already doing scrimmages and whatnot. He's already looked really, really good and has gone yard at least twice, I do believe. But you're looking at a guy that can play up the middle somewhere in the dirt, either shortstop or second base. He's lean, twitchy, has the bat speed from the left side to make everything work. I think he's a guy moving forward that you look at that. You look at that, look at the profile, look who he's going to be at. Like, you got Grinlinger on that lineup. Both Trent and Jared, because Jared is one of the top 2027s in the country.
Yeah.
And then Ethan Porter is also looking a lot toolsier and is on that same team. So, he's going to get a lot of eyes this year, whether it be in SoCal, whether that be in Cary when they come up in April for NHSI. He's a guy for me that is going to skyrocket up boards this year. I would not be at all shocked if he's, a top 100 pick when all is said and done.
I love it. Guy I'm going with, again, shout out to Rekka for seeing him at one point. Comes in at 5'10", 190 out of Mechanicsville, Maryland, Jonathan Coombs, outfielder. Also, 3-star running back, committed to Maryland, I think, to play both. So he will play football and he will play baseball. The kid's just an athlete. There's a lot of pop behind the bat. The hit tool, I think, needs a little bit of improvement based on the video I've seen so far, but he's big, he's physical with tons of bat speed. There's just kind of some mechanical changes you want to see, but man, the lower half, insanely large. Dude's fast. He's a running back, so like he can easily get good jumps in the outfield. Like that's a kid you also want to see play baseball because I think that could be huge for Maryland.
No, I'm with you on that one. And again, it's another thing where athleticism is king. Yep. It really is in this day of age. Like that, again, like not to like interrupt or anything, but kind of like build on your point with athleticism. Like that's, again, one of the scouting pillars I kind of abide by is like, what's the big thing I look for? How easy does the game come to you and how easy do you make it look? And athleticism, it plays a big part in that. So like you can improve the athlete. You definitely can. Like, when we had Nyans on a couple months ago, he was talking about doing yoga and everything. Yeah. And like yoga's perfect for anything like that. For anybody listening that wants to improve their athleticism, like I'll be straight up honest with you. Like I started yoga in, I want to say it was like April or May. And I went from, barely being able to touch my shins, bending down to your toes. And now I can just do it with no problem. So like, it's not like I can go out there and say like I have the best range at shortstop kind of athleticism, but like it's definitely an improvement. So if anybody out there listening to this and kind of looking for ways to improve on the athlete, yoga is definitely a good place to start. or like Pilates or anything like that. Like really loosens up the body. And for me, that's like the biggest thing I needed because I was stiffer than the whiteboard for the longest time.
I mean, people don't realize how much flexibility goes into athleticism, right? Everybody wants to skip stretching, everybody wants to skip leg yoga, but like those things play a huge role, man. Like that stuff's huge for those guys.
Absolutely. So, and that's another thing too. I'm excited to see what Nines can do with the athleticism, and there's video going around now. You look at the left-handed bat speed; it's
pretty good.
Yes,
Xavier Nyan's pretty good. If you want to see one of the most massive home runs he's ever hit, check out Tyler's Twitter.
108, 440
with wood, by the way, for a high school kid. Let's remember.
Oh, dude, it was like it was 93 middle from Gavin Fien's teammate, Regan Ricken. They're on the same high school team. So, yeah, that was a shot. Like when I tell you everything was silent there,
it's nuts.
Like you can hear the video. Nobody said a thing because we were all like our jaws were on the floor because we've never seen a ball that go that far from a prep kid ever.
I love it. That kind of wraps up everything we have for the prep board. Do you have any final thoughts, Tyler?
I think at this point, the only thought I can really say here is obviously I'm excited to see what the season brings for us. More importantly is obviously kind of just looking at this and going, what's the best way for me to put this? Like kind of looking at this and going, okay, I understand this could be changing so much going into the year. Why do you have it this way now?
Yeah.
Scouting's about being wrong 99% of the time, usually.
1,000%. Yep.
Yeah. And like, that's the message I kind of want to put across here is for anybody that's in the scouting field or wants to get into the scouting field, you have to have your gut feel on guys and have to trust your gut, even though in the back of your mind, you're going to be wrong 99% of the time. You hit that 1%, man, and let me tell you, that's the greatest feeling in the world. It really is. But you've got to accept being wrong in order for you to be right. And for me, that was the toughest thing moving forward in previous years was like you get in on a guy and nothing works out. Like Khalil Watson probably is like the best example for me is like I think I caught every single home run on film from like WWBA till his like playoff home run he hit against Pinehurst or something. And I thought he was going to be pretty good. Like I was pretty in on the power. I think it was an average hit tool because he was a bit too aggressive. And, looking back on it now, like didn't really work out all that well. But again, that was the moment where I'm like, okay, I'm fine with being wrong. Like it just didn't work out. Nothing is linear in baseball. Nothing is linear in development. And the same thing can be said about scouting. You really do have to trust your gut moving forward. So I guess that's the thought that I wanted to put out there is always trust your gut. Never doubt yourself. You start self-doubting yourself. It can go a lot of different ways. And this is coming from a guy that's overthinking literally everything. So that's just the biggest thing. Again, if you're looking to get into scouting, that's the biggest thing you got to work on is just being fine with being wrong.
Yep.
And
gonna happen.
Just move forward. Like you cannot get caught up on past mistakes, And
don't act like you're always right because you're just not gonna be. I hate to break it to
you. As much as I want to say like, hey, this kid's gonna be really good, I fully believe it. I don't want to be the cocky person that kind of just be like, like shove it in your face. I got this right. Like, I think at the end of the day, you have to have some humility to go with being right in your mind. And that's the way to kind of humble yourself a little bit is and once you're wrong, you kind of just suck it up. You move on. Like that's the best way to do it is sit there, enjoy the moment, but also don't try and like make others feel bad because they have different opinions than you. You as an individual can leave bad reviews for yourself if you handle yourself wrong. And that applies for just anything in life, really. Like, I love how we went on a little life lesson here at the end of this too. I'd like this.
That's how we're gonna wrap up.
That is true. And like, I don't know. I'm the youngest person on this podcast right now. I don't know why I'm doing this.
You saying I'm old?
No, I'm just saying, like,
Well, it's not. You're not wrong. So,
well, I don't want to try and like be an ageist here, but like I'm 26 and I'm having a life lesson on a podcast. I never thought I would do that.
I love it. That is a perfect way to wrap up. And speaking of being humble, we have some incredible stuff coming your way, content wise. Interview with Darren Vaught of D1 Baseball, ACC Baseball Central, USA Baseball. I'm probably missing 100 million things because he's involved with so many cool things. But he came on with Tyler and Monty Taylor on our team. Just kind of talked about this groundbreaking narrative podcast on Rintaro Sasaki that he's going to have coming up. It's a really cool interview. It's really cool insights on how Stanford was like able to obtain Rintaro and like what does that mean for the program moving forward. He's just a really incredible dude. And that's why I was saying, like, speaking of humble, like that guy is just one of the nicest guys that I think most of us have ever met or talked to. So Tyler, do you have any little insights on that? A little preview?
Yeah. So foremost, I did not know the guy that does the drawings for Darren's podcast was the guy that also does the Sunday Night Baseball things. So like that was cool to learn.
Yeah.
So if anybody's interested in that, that's where the drawings come from, and he does a great job.
Yeah, those are awesome.
And like the thing is, it's a 6-part kind of documentary about Rentaro coming from Japan, the decision and everything. I think they're doing like a 2 per week release. So like tomorrow, or I guess on this point, yesterday, on the 27th when it's released is the first part. Then we get the second part later in the week, and it's gonna be like that going up to baseball season essentially for us. So and then we kind of also talk about Stanford in general. Like what's the outcome for Stanford? Like, is this a team that, you know, as hyped up as we've been about them, do we think that they can live up to it? And, you know, Darren, I think, puts it perfectly. They have such a range of spectrum of how they could be really, really good with the experience they have coming back, or they could just be like last year's team where it's kind of underwhelming. But I think looking at what they could be is more essential in the conversation where, like, again, you bring back 99% of your innings, whether or not they're good or bad, like, that's experience, and experience is king in college baseball. Like, that's the biggest thing. So I can totally see the Stanford team just being the top of the ACC this year. Just with the kind of stuff that they're returning, like Matt Scott is going to be their Friday guy. Joey Volchko is not far behind. Then you bring in like Christian Lim, Torin O'Haron. You look at the lineup with Rentaro, Brady Reynolds, Charlie Bates has made it to campus and looks like he's going to be a legit kid moving forward. They're an exciting lineup. They really are. And I can totally see maybe not an Omaha appearance, like I had mentioned in the podcast, but like, you know, this is a team not far removed from 3 straight Omaha appearances.
Yeah. They're going to be good. Gotta love it. Other things that we got in the works, we are inching closer to the college baseball season. So we are going to be fully focused on getting you prepared for that. We got top 25 college team rankings. We got preseason All-Americans coming your way. We're going to have conference breakdowns. So going into the Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC, the SEC, giving you stories, the things that you need to be following there. And then we're going to have like a article looking at what you need to know for college baseball. So like kind of the key storylines, all the awesome stuff that Tyler's been doing, Monty's been doing, everybody on the team, Peyton, all those things are going to be included in that article to help you get prepared for the college baseball season. So be on the lookout for that. And until next time, we'll see you.